All right, let's dive into Rabat real estate. We're dissecting this YouTube video with Yassine Meniari.
18 years of experience in that market.
Exactly, so he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
You're thinking about investing there, right?
You came to the right place. Yassine doesn't hold back. Like, have you seen what he says about the mismatch between buyers and sellers?
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. And he even gives his personal recommendation, a 1 million dirham investment. Talk about an insider tip.
That's going to be good.
Okay, first things first. Is Rabat a buyer's market or a seller's market?
Well, according to Yassine.
It's a seller's market right now.
Yeah.
Prices are up, especially after COVID. But, and this is important, he says buyers haven't quite caught up to those prices.
Right. He calls it a stalemate.
A stalemate. So transactions are happening.
They are, but mostly for those, like, perfect properties.
The dream homes.
Yeah. And anything average or below sits there.
Makes you wonder why, right?
Well, he points to Rabat's demographics. A lot of government employees.
Not exactly the type to be flipping houses.
Right. Not in a rush to sell, so that creates a stable market.
But not a very dynamic one.
Exactly.
What's the takeaway for our listener who's thinking about investing? Patience.
Yes. If you're looking for a quick deal, maybe look somewhere else.
But if you're in it for the long haul, that stability could be attractive.
Very true.
Now, let's talk about what's actually available. What kind of properties are we looking at in Rabat?
Well, Yassine is very clear. It's not a lack of properties.
It's a mismatch.
Yes. In what's being offered.
You've got all these older buildings, 25 to 35 years old, he says.
A lot of them.
Often not well maintained.
So this is where due diligence is critical.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a buyer, you got to factor in renovation costs. Sellers, they tend to overvalue those older properties.
And then you've got this thing called the referential.
Yeah, tell me about that. I didn't quite understand that.
So this is a document the Moroccan tax authorities use to assess property values.
Oh, okay.
But it's known for being outdated.
Not reflecting the actual market prices?
Exactly. So imagine trying to negotiate a fair price when everyone's using different numbers.
Right. So it's a starting point maybe, but do your own research.
Definitely. Okay, let's get to the numbers. What are we actually looking at price-wise in Rabat?
So Yassine breaks it down by standing A and D by neighborhood.
Very helpful.
Yeah, so let's say popular or working class areas. Think like 11,000, 12,000 dirhams per square meter for new construction.
Got it.
Older places, more like 7,000, 8,000 dirhams per square meter.
Now, what about middle-class areas, like Lotion?
Lotion, yeah, you're looking at 16,000, 17,000 dirhams per square meter for new builds.
Okay.
And around 12,000 for older properties.
Yeah, okay, now let's go high-end Suisi.
Suisi, you're talking 28,000 to 30,000 dirhams per square meter new.
Right.
And older properties still up there, 23,000, 24,000.
Okay, one thing I noticed, the price gap between new and old. It shrinks as you go up in standing.
Interesting, right. Something to consider for your investment strategy.
Absolutely. Now, I know you're interested in villas. And Yassine drops a truth bomb about villas, especially older ones.
That's that.
The land is the real value,
Okay.
not the building itself. He
Interesting.
gives this example. Imagine a 50-year-old villa, prime lot, 2,000 square meters in Suisi.
Okay, prime location.
Could go for 8 million dirhams just for the land.
Wow. So don't let a seller fool you with a fancy price tag on a rundown building.
Right. It's about the potential of that land.
Makes sense.
All right, the big question, rental yields. What kind of return can you expect in Rabat? Yassine lays it out. These are averages for standard apartments. Yeah. Unfurnished long-term rentals.
Yeah.
About 3.5% gross yield.
Okay, not bad.
Furnished short-term rentals like Airbnb, those can yield significantly higher.
I was going to say, there's got to be more to it.
10-15%.
Now we're talking.
That's tapping into that growing tourist market.
And Yassine knows this market inside and out.
So think about that, especially if you're looking for a strong return. And he actually gives his personal recommendation for a 1 million dirham investment.
Oh, what's that?
Small apartment, 50, 60 square meters. City center.
Okay.
Fully renovated, geared towards those short-term rentals.
Smart.
Why? Tourists, business travelers, even doctors, lawyers on temporary assignments. High demand equals high occupancy.
He's basically giving us the cheat code to the Rabat real estate market.
It's actionable advice, something you can actually explore.
I like it. Now, what if you're thinking outside of Rabat? What about the surrounding areas?
Yassine talks about Harura and Tamara.
Okay, I've heard of those.
Up and coming, more affordable than Rabat.
Interesting.
Tamara especially, he says it's really attractive. Close to Rabat, lots of development happening, more of a family-friendly atmosphere.
So it's like choosing your vibe. Do you want that coastal retreat or the up-and-coming family-friendly vibe?
Two different paths,
Right.
and we'll unpack those in more detail in the next part of our deep dive.
I'm in.
So that referential, it can be super misleading.
Right. Imagine trying to agree on a price when the baseline itself is all wonky.
Exactly. It creates this weird tension between buyers and sellers.
Yeah, I get it.
Yassine says it used to be a reliable tool, but now, forget about it.
Just goes to show you can't trust just any source. Got to do your own research.
Speaking of research, let's talk about specific areas within Rabat.
Okay.
Yassine mentioned the city center is becoming more and more popular, especially around Hassan Tower. He calls it a hidden gem for investors.
Hidden gem, the city center.
Well, he says it's only recently started to gain traction with investors. It's like tourists are drawn to the history, you know? They'd rather stay in a renovated riad than some modern apartment.
Oh, I get it. That authentic experience.
Exactly. And that shift, that preference for riads,
Yeah.
that's an opportunity.
To renovate and cater to that short-term rental market.
You got it.
Smart. But renovating historical properties, that can't be easy.
You're telling me permits, regulations, preserving the historical look.
Not for the faint of heart.
No, but if you can pull it off.
Owning a riad near Hassan Tower with all those tourists, dream investment.
Right. But maybe not everyone is ready to tackle a riad. There's always Yassine's other suggestion.
The smaller apartment, city center.
Bingo. More accessible. Still, potentially high yields if you cater to the right people.
Options are good. Gotta choose what works for you.
Now, here's another thing Yassine brought up. People from Casablanca are actually moving to Rabat.
Really?
Reverse migration, he calls it.
Interesting. What's driving that?
He doesn't go into too much detail, but he does say this influx of new residents, it's going to impact the housing market in the long run.
More demand, higher prices. Good for investors, maybe not so good for everyone else.
It's complicated. You've got the long-term residents, mostly government employees, and now this new wave coming in, often from the private sector with different needs.
Definitely got to understand those nuances.
Oh, for sure. Now, remember those different rental yields?
Long-term versus short-term.
Yassine is really adamant that furnished short-term rentals, you know, for tourists and such.
Higher returns, right?
Right.
Way higher. Like 10-15% compared to 3.5%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not just picking the option with the biggest number, right?
More management, more work involved, turnover, cleaning, dealing with different languages maybe.
It's a business, basically. Higher reward, higher risk.
True.
Got to figure out what fits your style. Speaking of which, real estate agents.
Ooh, yeah, sometimes you wonder.
Right. Yassine says find an agent who's a true advisor, someone who gets your goals and helps you navigate this crazy market.
Someone you trust. Easier said than done, though.
Yassine's advice. Don't rush. Talk to multiple agents, ask for references, find someone who's genuinely got your back.
Solid advice.
Now, before we move on, Yassine touched upon something I found fascinating. The impact of foreign investors.
Foreign investors. In Rabat.
He's seeing more and more European investors, especially from France, coming to the market.
They must see potential.
They do. They see stability and good returns.
Well, with Rabat becoming more international, more tourists, businesses,
Right. It makes sense.
definitely adds another layer to the market.
It does. Phew. We've covered a lot, haven't we? The referential, the city center, people moving from Casablanca.
Rental yields, real estate agents, even foreign investors. My head's spinning.
But there's one more piece to this puzzle.
Hahura and Tamara.
You got it. We're going to dive into those areas next.
Ah.
All right, we're back. We've talked a lot about Rabat. Now let's explore those areas around the city, Hahura and Tamara.
Beyond the city limits. Could be some interesting opportunities there.
So Yassine paints a very different picture for each one. Hahura, he says it's upscale, like a coastal retreat.
Ah, nice.
Beautiful ocean views, a more relaxed vibe.
Sounds lovely.
But of course, that comes with a price tag.
Oh, yeah. Location, location, location. You always pay a premium for that coastal lifestyle.
Exactly. Tamara, completely different story. This is all about affordability and growth.
Oh, okay. So more of a long-term play.
He sees it attracting younger people, maybe families, people who want more space, a sense of community.
Interesting. So two totally different options. Close to Rabat, but with distinct vibes.
It is. Hahura, you've got that luxury. Tamara, you've got that potential. And with Tamara, you're still close to Rabat.
Right. So you don't have to sacrifice access to the city.
The best of both worlds. Now, I want to go back to that 1 million dirham investment idea.
The small apartment, city center, all geared towards short-term rentals.
Yeah. I mean, it's tempting. High yields, potentially. Yassine's got a good track record.
Right. But this is about making informed decisions, right?
Exactly. What works for one person might not work for another.
You got to weigh those factors, your goals, how much risk you're comfortable with, how much work you want to put in.
And honestly, if you're serious about investing, talk to an expert, like Yassine. Think of this deep dive as your starting point.
We've given you the basics. Now it's time to dig deeper, do your research, explore your options.
Well said. But before we sign off, there's one last thing Yassine mentioned. He focused on residential real estate, right?
Yeah.
He said commercial real estate in Rabat might offer even higher yields.
Really? Now that's something to think about.
Right. So is commercial real estate the real hidden gem in Rabat? We've given you the information. Now it's up to you to decide. What's the next step on your investment journey? Whatever you decide, we're here to help guide you along the way. This is just the beginning.